such a time as this.
And welcome back to For Such a Time as This, the place where there is no such thing as a silent witness. I am joined again with Tiffany from Texas. Tiffany, thank you and welcome to For Such a Time as This again.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you again. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've been busy. I apologize. I have not put out any videos, I think in almost 2 weeks, but we are back. We're back with a vengeance, talking about election. You know, the saying is you speak about everything except politics and religion. Well, we're going to break both rules at one time. We're going to talk about politics and religion because Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden, has made his selection for vice president, and it is Kamala Harris, senator from California. So we're going to talk about a few issues today as it pertains to the election, the Democratic ticket that's newly cemented, and politics. So first topic here, identity politics. Identity politics, from what I have gathered throughout the years, I think a working definition is politics that are simply applied to the identity of a person, not policy, identity, that politics are geared towards one's identity, whether it be racial, whether it be sexual orientation or gender identity, I guess is now a new one. It gears towards the identity, not necessarily policies for all. Tiffany, what is your understanding of, that's my understanding of identity politics. What say ye?
Right. So I agree with that too. What I've gathered from every election that I've paid attention to, when the time comes to address a certain group, whether you're women, where you a group belonging to women, the group that belongs to
that's right, women,
community, the group that in some kind of way is seen as disenfranchised or
yes,
downtrodden, needing
yes,
the special attention.
yes,
That the politician would
yeah,
say that I understand where you're coming from, or I understand your plight, and they address you as a group. They address you based on what they believe are the major concerns that you would have as a member of a certain group.
yeah. And from a biblical perspective, getting your view, what's wrong with that from a Christian perspective?
From a Christian perspective, my major issues that I've had with it is that my identity really is in Christ when it comes to things that I would need, or things that pertain to just living and being able to live a quiet life or a peaceful life. Is really found in the provision that God would give. I don't see the government as being able to provide those things that I would actually need to live. Regarding the political issues, take for women, being a woman for an example, a lot of times the addressing women's reproductive rights is the term that's used now. They that contradicts what I understand and believe to be God's standard for my life. So I don't buy into all of the arguments, or I don't buy into the promises even that come from the politicians when it, dealing with what they call reproductive rights, because I understand that the way that I conduct my life is going to be based on what God has already prescribed or already commanded, and what is being promised or what is being touted as a right by these parties or these politicians just doesn't add up at all.
Yeah, and the identity politics, it's driven, I think, even what some would consider conservative politicians have bought into it. You see it really in the polls. Now, when I was younger, much younger, early 80s, you just simply had a poll. Who was leading in the polls? This person was 48%, this person 45%. Now the polls are who's leading among Hispanics, women, suburban women, urban women, men that's 6 feet tall, men under 5'6". It's driven by the identities, and it goes all the way against what was at one point the concept that created the great melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to undo, by identity politics, they're trying to undo the great melting pot that we're one people united by a certain set of ideals. And out of that, too, you have the great speech, which now would be a hate mongering. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That's antithetical to the identity politics. No, what can my country do for me?
Yeah.
Because I'm a white, 6 feet, suburban, whatever. Right? And it's just it blows my mind how we're actually going backwards.
Yeah.
And which leads to this first clip. Again, another speech someone gave a long time ago, where a person is judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That's now outdated. Which leads to Vice President Biden, who is now running to remove the vice in front of that title.
Mm-hmm.
His famous statement on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne. Let us play the clip right here. Here it is.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
If you have problems figuring out who to vote for, then you ain't black. Tiffany, what say ye?
Just to believe him. If I take his word for it, I guess that I'm not black, and I'm disappointed to hear that.
Yeah, so Joe Biden has now defined what it is to mean black. And here you have a man who's of the white community in the 70 years old telling you ain't black. Tiffany,
Right.
you're not black.
Right. 6.
Charlemagne tried to rescue him. He knew he just messed up bad. No, they ain't got nothing to do with that. Ain't got nothing to do with that. And I didn't play the rest of it for the sake of time here, but he said, "Come on, man, look at this." No. I'm going to do a video later on that's going to actually highlight some things with Joe Biden and now Senator Harris. So, but I mean, what in your, because you and I both, we've talked about this. We do have family who's not necessarily believers or not conservatives, right? Mm-hmm. What was their take on it? Did you speak to your family at all with that?
Not on this comment, no.
Okay.
No, I can only say that just, in the past, was growing up where you had issues of not being black based on what you do.
Yeah,
what you don't
absolutely.
do.
Oh, so you had that also, right?
Yeah.
Now, where did you grow up again? I'm sorry, I forgot. It wasn't
Indiana.
Texas. It's what?
Indiana. South Bend, Indiana.
So you had that conversation in South Bend, Indiana, because I grew up in New Orleans, and let me tell you, New Orleans is like no other place, I believe, in this country, with the Creole mix in there.
Okay.
But I didn't realize that other places had that issue.
Yep. Even the Midwest. Midwest is supposed to be slowing a little bit behind the times. Yeah, it caught up there too. So yeah.
And in what sense, what behavior would prompt kids to say that other kids weren't black?
The way that you talk, if you don't have the specific ways of, the intonation or how you pronounce certain words.
Gotcha.
The way that you speak, or the way that you, even if you are to pursue your education more seriously.
I was just about to ask that. Did it extend to education, as though if you were doing well in school, then you ain't black? To be black means you get F's and D's. Really? Is that what you had?
Yeah, not specifically my friends that
Okay.
I help with,
Okay.
but yeah, you would see it, you would hear it, people
Wow.
picking on one another. If you wanted to maintain, a certain attendance and going to school and take it seriously, not skip class and all of that.
Really?
You know, certain music that you might listen to or not listen to, you get ragged on for that too. So
Really?
it
Because
is, yeah.
one of the things I can say why it was very kooky, and I always use that word, that scientific word, kooky, in New Orleans, it was never, being black was never extended to getting C's, D's, and F's. You get ridiculed for that. You could be called a dummy. Because at least, and maybe there are some other things, but maybe the schools that I went to, whatever, there was no pride in F's. It was shames in D's, right? It was shames in C's. That the community, and there's a diverse culture with even the African American community. Despite what Biden says, we're not all the same. We're not monolithic. So yeah, at least my understanding was, no one wanted to be called a dummy.
No.
But I did hear this in Chicago though. I've heard that recently too. That you're trying to be white if you get A's. Really? That is unbelievable. That's unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
We're running long on time, but I do want to get your last take on this, Tiffany. I did speak to a cousin of mine about Senator Harris now to pick for VP. Now, you and I, we do not engage in identity politics. We believe a person should be judged by who they are, more specifically who they are in Christ, and that the skin color does not matter, but that you and I, that's believers, that is not the majority of the African American community. So I asked my cousin the other day, do you know who Senator Harris' husband is? And I'm going to just simply play a picture on the screen. It's up there now. I don't believe most African Americans have seen a picture of Kamala Harris with her husband. Because I'm going to tell you, a lot of times at the debates or where she is, I have not seen them. But now that you've seen the picture, people hear it for such a time as this, your eyes did not deceive you. He is not black. He's white. I think you say Tiffany's Jewish, right? He's a very successful lawyer in California. Tiffany, not between you and I. You and I, there's no issue.
Right.
Right? But dealing with your family, extended family, with my extended family who's not believers, do you think this would be an issue?
Probably mixed response there, but it could be.
Now you say mixed response.
Some would not care.
Some.
Yeah, some would not care.
But some would.
Some probably would have an issue with that.
Probably? I think you're being kind, Tiffany.
He doesn't have the same appeal that Obama and his family
Correct.
had.
Correct. Yeah. I when I told my cousin that, he was like, "What? I didn't know that."
Yeah.
What? And I said, "Why does that matter?" Not to him, it doesn't matter. He honestly, I can honestly tell you, he doesn't care. But he understood the implications of what I was saying. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Yeah, man. People are not, that might not go over well with some blacks. Mm-hmm. That may not go over well. But you know what? She's on that side. The Democrats play identity politics. And I think this is going to be an issue. I'm going to make a video about this. This is going to be an issue. Some blacks are not going to be happy with that. And I can guarantee you at some point, some black women organization somewhere is going to make an issue of it. Shouldn't. Should not be. Yeah. But this is the bed they've made. Identity politics. So it's sad, but it's going to be an issue. Any last words, Tiffany, we're going a little long here, but any last words just about the election? We're going to definitely do more of this, but the election from a Christian perspective.
This is very interesting times that we are witnessing here.
Yeah.
I think that it's a lot of prayer, personal time with God, personal time in His Word that we really need to just have more of that, more than ever. Just spending more time in prayer and getting His perspective on what we're going through, getting His Word and His commands about how to conduct ourselves. It's a highly politically charged environment now. I think that every election has become more charged emotionally, where people are really divided on issues where you see it in family. You see it even, it's come down for this last election, even between husbands and wives, where people are taking sides.
Oh, really? You've experienced that? I mean, you know of.
I'm hearing it. My husband and I are fine, but I'm just.
No, I understand. I didn't mean between you and your husband. I meant that you've seen this.
I'm hearing, so I listen to radio and people calling in, talking about their marriages and relationships, seeing the division, even cutting, the division in the homes now.
Based on what though?
Political alignment or who they vote for. I can't believe you voted for, Trump this time. So now that we have all of this other agendas thrown in with the BLM.
Yes, that's something we got to talk about. We've got to do a video on the BLM soon, Tiffany.
Yes.
But we've gone a little long, but so what? Be more, if you could, when weighing our options or our considerations, I should say, when it comes specifically now that the tickets are set between Trump and Pence, Biden and Harris. We'll do more of this, but any initial impressions on how the head-to-head shakes up in your mind?
Well, you mean as far as how they'll do?
Or even what to consider. I'll go first. Look, Trump has his issues, and that's putting it mildly. I think Trump is a flawed man, morally. He's a flawed man. Pence makes professions of faith, and I really can't point to anything in the last 4 years that I can say Pence has done negatively. And as a matter of fact, I could say positively, there was a school in which his wife worked at that held to the biblical standards of sexuality, and when called out on it, they didn't back down. So I'll give him that. Trump, on the other hand, don't tell me you didn't sleep with Stormy Daniels, yet you admit you paid her $125,000. That don't say that. That's a lie. Come on, man. But I will say his administration, as it pertains to the people of God, has been far better than what Hillary's would have been.
I agree.
Not even close. Now, this H.R. 5, which is passed the House, that says that churches cannot discriminate when it comes to hiring pastors or staff people based on sexual orientation or sexual identity, or you will lose your 501c3 status. Biden, I've heard, I've got to look this up, but I got from a really good source that Biden has already said he would pass it. Chuck Schumer said he would pass it. It is already passed in the House. My church would lose its tax-exempt status if Biden were to win the election. And churches will be forced to make the decision, pay taxes on the land, which many of them cannot afford, or sign a document saying you are no longer going to preach or teach against homosexuality or transgenderism. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The way it is shaping up, and Senator Harris, she's for legalizing prostitution. Therefore, transgender surgery by taxpayer money. Therefore, they're pro-homosexual marriage. Again, the way it's shaping up, and I grant this to people, Trump is a morally flawed man, but his policies and what he does far better than what I see coming from the other Democratic side. Now, can my mind change? Of course it can. As more information comes, we'll make decisions. But as it shapes up now, that's the way I see it. So, Tiffany, real quick, we can revisit this, but if there's anything else you want to say, when looking at this from your perspective that you have to weigh.
It's pretty much the same as it was in 2016 for me, where I saw the 2 tickets and Trump was the outsider, understanding that, just like he said, that he's a flawed man, but he didn't strike me as somebody that was against Christians having freedom in this country. And just the way the culture is now, I mean, we come down to really, really small number of choices as to what it is that we want to see as believers.
Yeah.
And I really do prefer for Christians to maintain as much freedom as we can.
Yes.
Not just throw it away so quickly.
Yes.
I get that feeling with the Democratic Party that it's like, full acceleration into darkness, and we're going to be salt and light. I think we could at least slow that down and allow more time for, witnessing to family, friends, other or unbelievers, just having time to pray and for people and witness to people. So.
All right, we've got to do something soon here on a BLM. We've got to do it. Extended, exhaustive look at them. But until then, thank you, Tiffany. We'll be back with Tiffany soon. Thank you all for looking and listening and tuning in for such a time as this. With the dark days ahead, and I believe they are dark regardless of who wins, this country is split. We no longer hold to common values in America. And maybe at this time, God has raised us up to be his voice, to be his witnesses. And maybe, God has raised you up for such a time as this. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.
For such a time as this.